Hey, it's your boy, Alex. Welcome to the first podcast. Lucky you. Today, by popular request, we'll be touching on the suspension of visas and essentially immigration into the US, as well as Black Lives Matter movement in terms of the riots, protesting, and a bit of chaz and chop. You'll find out later what those are. So, and if there's time left, we can touch on something a little extra. So, uh, suspension of visas, right? Not okay, not good. Well, for some people, it personally does not bother me. But then again, just because that's the way, then that's not a good way to look at it. So on June 22nd, the Trump administration issued a proclamation, which was Proclamation 140, I think it was called, which suspended the entry to the US on J1 visas, H2B visas, and H1B visas. H1B are non-agricultural worker visas. H2B are spouse visas, which is essentially like green cards. You marry into going there. And J1, as most of you who are listening to this probably know, it's for exchange workers, right? So this proclamation was born of necessity, from my understanding, to stem the rapid unemployment of Americans. The rate, if I remember correctly, was 26.9% in loss to foreigners or undocumented workers, and was even greater impacted so in the service industry. So, in their ways to combat this was to, um, basically put a halt on immigration. Do I think it's a legitimate tactic? I assume so. If you stem the supply, the demand for workers are going to go up. That's like basic econ 101. My econ friends will agree with me there. So if you limit the amount of foreigners to enter, the amount of native workers will go up. Though some look at it as him trying to skirt the issue of what's currently happening, as a move to direct fire. Some see it as, a bigoted way of doing things. I see it in a strictly utilitarian way. It has its purpose and it serves its function with no other ulterior motive. Maybe because of the high racial epithets that are being spoken everywhere. Maybe that's why people might think that he might have some kind of ulterior motive. But I personally don't think so. Because right now, I don't think everyone's like, fanning at the flames to just go to the US, right? With how things are, I don't think you really want to go there. I personally don't. Like, for right now, I really don't. So the proclamation extension was to the 26th, as in to be essentially legitimized or legalized by the Senate or the administration, and it would be throughout till the end of the year. So it won't be a permanent, proclamation. It won't be there like after the year ends. So I don't see why people are really creating that much of a fuss. I can see why non-students who want to go there in terms of the H2B, which are the spouse green cards, I can see why they might have a problem. They have a bit more invested in it than some work and travel, right? One is a side gig to make some money and earn probably some experience, and the other, is a life decision. I think it's a bit heavier, in my opinion. Uh, it's a slippery slope, it's not very easy to run a country. I like to imagine, you know. everybody can criticize basketball, but not everybody can play it. You know, I see people always criticizing the actions of the Trump administration. Not to say that he's made some pretty bad decisions, really bad decisions. Is he racist? Probably. I'd rate it like what, 40%, 50% racism. Is he stupid? Yes. That's a yes for me. So more time, I think his actions come off as racist because he's dumb, right? He doesn't have like proper backing. For example, what happened at the Lafayette Square, that was a stupid decision beyond stupid decisions. And to fill in some of the listeners that don't know, what happened at Lafayette Square was that essentially Trump cleared out an entire park of protesters to have a photo op in front of a church in which he also held the Bible upside down. Nothing like committing several human rights laws to take a photo op. Right? Living the life, what a rock star. But back to the matter at hand, right? The proclamation issued, it has its views, right? I can see where it's applicable as a solution in terms of it's a good way to combat it. I kind of just said the same things 3 times, and you're gonna point me out on that. It's there to help the American people, not necessarily foreign immigrants. And you can see that. I think Americans as a whole are very patriotic and nationalistic in their views. Not to say you don't have a few liberals that are all about the open border policy. There are reasons for borders. There are reasons for walls. I'm not saying people should erect them. We live in a global community, so naturally you wouldn't want that. But to cause, say that, well, we're in a pandemic right now, so jobs are naturally low. People are gonna realize that some people's positions are redundant. This is where full-on nepotism and cronyism are gonna be in high swing. You're gonna want your friends, your family to have job positions. In addition to people who are basically seen as redundant, you're going to want to lose or minimize spending basically. So all those extra fluff employees, they're getting the axe. I think even with customer service in basically IPOs and BPOs, I hear there's like a massive employee drop. So it's a natural response to what is a global pandemic, But it's unfortunate that this is the only way to combat the rapid loss of employment and to help economic stability in the US. So I won't bash the administration too much for it, because you have to do what you have to do, because it's the same way, and it's in the same sense as with this whole COVID situation, where if a lot of people get infected, you start after deciding who lives and who dies. It's essentially the same premise with running a country and seeing who gets employment and who doesn't. Naturally, you want to protect those who are yours, nationals, locals, natives. You wouldn't want to have most jobs being outsourced to foreigners, immigrants, and that expenditure being repatriated back to their country instead of going back into the host country to help with economic stability. You see what I'm saying? So in a sense, it's a very, it's a fine line. It's a balancing act. It's kind of hard to make the tough decisions, but I feel that any decision the administration makes, like any state or government, it's worthy of criticism, and it should always be looked at in both lights. Never take a single side over another. Always see the both like the liberal and the utilitarian side of it. So yeah, that's most of what it I think it's worth. If you have any more ideas or comments on how I'm wrong, because I'm always wrong. I'm like what 50% retarded, or and another 25% don't know what I'm talking about. So if you have comments or statements to be made, make them in comments. I would love to hear feedback. It's discourse is par for the course. I would love to hear it. Secondly, let's talk about racism. Ooh, ooh, ooh! People are just shaking in their boots. Racism, right? It's not good. Bold statements here, I know. Very bold statements. Racism not good. Just give me my humanitarian award right now. Is the U.S. steeped in a racist society and history? History, yes. Society, 50-50. I call it 50-50. If you take a look at the political makeup of the U.S. right now, you'd realize that majority of the states there are blue states or liberal states, if you want to know, or libertarian states. Same thing. I just said the same thing 3 times, right? So they support libertarian ethics, views, models, which are things like feminism, equality. Not to say it's not for everybody. I've never seen someone who isn't a feminist, because everybody likes equality. Everybody wants to be treated equal, and I'm talking in my personal experience. It could be different for you. It could be different for other people. I'm just saying, as a general rule, people tend to want to be equal, So other libertarian views are equality, equity, redistribution of wealth, and let everyone have like an equal footing, as a step up in life. Then you have the right or the Republican views, which are, a bit more Confederate, if you get my drift. Slightly bit more Confederate. They seek more. So think about it like this: libertarians are like that dude that's okay with everything. They're all right, and Republicans like that Christian home. That Christian home, if you get what I mean, right? So when I say that their racist society is like 50-50, yes, you have people of old who are of that more, Republican view, hard Republican view, because then again, as I said, everybody wants to be treated equally. That will, hire based on the color of his skin, the instead of the content of the character. Yeah, that's a Martin Luther King reference. If you get that, good on you. You get a gold star. There is people who hire based on gender, which is retarded, essentially retarded. Because we all have human bodies. Why can't we all just do the same work? I can understand that we all can't do the same work. Sometimes, it's a bit disproportionate in certain work sectors. Most men will gravitate towards industrial sectors, work sites, mining, more hands-on work, and women will tend to gravitate towards more soft skills, like office or secretarial work. Not to say, don't jump down my throat and said that Alex, you kind of said that shut the fuck up, right? I'm just saying, that what I'm seeing is that women like that kind of work more. I'm not saying that they can't do it, do the other kind of stuff. It's just that they gravitate towards the softer stuff first, you know? Okay, good, 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 great, nice. Alright. So, the BLM movement, as you all know, or I hope you all know, that the death of George Floyd, bleh, wow, George Floyd was just a breaking point to a series of, racial profiling killings, series of systemic racism, you know, and I can see where the system is rigged against, the minorities. I also see where we're doing a lot better than we were, say, a good 100, not even 100, I'm not even gonna put that far. We're doing way better than we did 50 years ago, right? 50 years ago, racism was high, like it was evident, You could go to America 50 years ago and see with your eyes, evidence of racism. Even more so if you go even further back. Right now, we're in, with all the riots and stuff, do you think, you know, do you think that what's happening now, the amount of cities being burned, the autonomous zones being formed, the protests and riots that are going on, do you think that could have happened 50 years ago or 100 plus years ago? I know you're gonna bring up the LA riots, but I'm like, that's my point exactly. If this sort of thing happened 100 or 50 years ago, it would be a bloodshed on the levels of Tiananmen Square. You would have cops who are outly and explicitly racist, who are just shooting you and asking questions later. Cause corpses make the best, the greatest of suspects. They can't resist when they're dead. And they can't deny when they're dead. So, in my views, we're doing way better than we did a good 150 years ago. Not to say we can't do better now, right? So back to the point at hand. The whole Black Lives Movement that happened as a caveat to George's death. Was it justified? Yes. In the initial stages, I was with them. I was on the side of Black Power. That a man's life was taken unjustly over something that was essentially insignificant in the greater scheme of things. Not to say it was something to be overlooked. If we started overlooking petty crimes, it would lead to larger crimes, but I think in the initial stages where people push back and large protests and walks are formed, it was a kind of kindling to a greater flame. It was a spark of revolution, if I dare say. We're not reach French Revolution status yet, where we start, heads start rolling, but we're getting there. I was with them. People were pushing back, and it was beautiful. But then, it took a turn for the worse. You have dissidents, you have anarchists that use the fake guise of the movement to cause anarchy, to disrupt the message, So the looting starts. And I know as soon as I said the looting starts, people immediately got PTSD. So just cool it, right? Just cool it, I know immediately wanted to finish that sentence when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Just cool. We'll get there. We'll get there when we get there, right? The looting, was it justified in my opinion? I don't think so. I really don't. I think at that point, you're hurting your cause more than aiding it, alright? You are a movement to prevent and destroy or eliminate systemic racism, and a part of systemic racism was stereotyping or racial profiling. People don't want black people because they think they are violent or stupid. These are stereotypes. I am not calling black people stupid or violent, right? So just bear with me here. Calm down. Just settle on the racial pride, right? Because I see everybody as monotone. We're all people, one and all. Okay? So the looting, I don't think it was justified. When that started happening, I kind of lose faith in the cause, because at that point you're proving them right. You are proving to them that black people are, violent and they cause statistically cause crime and like, there are all these things, and I'm like, I know someone's gonna come back to me. Someone's gonna come back to me and say, well, Alex, it's not black people causing that. It's white people causing that. We're hiding under it. Regardless, you are hiding under the movement, right? You're making the movement look bad. It hurts the image, because you're proving what they always thought. You're not aiding your cause. You're not making anybody look better. So the lootings, they weren't so bad. What I did have issue with them though was that they targeted privatized businesses, like people-owned businesses, black-owned businesses. I think when you start looting black people businesses, not to say that it's good to loot white people businesses either. It's not good to loot any kind, but it's a bit. There's a touch of irony when a black person's livelihood is ruined because of a black person's livelihood that was ruined. It's dramatic irony in its purest form, right? So once the looting was done and cops were called in to essentially protect these businesses, that's when things got escalated a bit out of hand. If you wanted to send a message, don't burn down or loot privatized businesses. Burn down and loot police station, tax offices, friggin' courtrooms that you always see rule against black people. Come on, make a message, not prove people right. Eventually they did burn it down, so congratulations, I guess. I also take issue with that as well, but let me keep my thoughts in line. So the police comes in, and that just escalates issues even further, because black people, police, that's a worse combination than oil and water. Worse a combination than curry and milk. You just don't do it, right? So tensions are high. Some police are black, some are white. The black people, they hate the police, they hate the white people, but they are disappointed in black police. And I'm like, they're just doing their job. They're people doing their jobs, right? Do they want to be there? I don't think so. Unless you're really passionate about it. Would I want to be there? Not really. I don't too fancy it. But there's people doing their jobs. They aren't racist. I don't think all cops are racist. I don't think all cops are bigots. I don't think all cops are bad. Just like I don't think all BLM supporters are violent. I don't think all BLM supporters are criminals. But, you have exceptions to the rule. So that starts, and when police are being pushed back by BLM, people start throwing rocks. Rocks turn into heavier things. Rocks turn into bottles. Bottles turn into Molotov bottles. Cops just standing unarmed turns into cops with riot shields, turns into cops with rubber bullet guns, turns into cops with tear gas. So it's not a very good sight. And then you have the National Guard that turns up, and then it's even worse, cause as you know, the National Guard isn't the police, it's the military. When they come in, they don't give a shit. They're gonna give orders, and if you don't take the orders, well, to quote a once wise man, hippity hoppity, get off my property, basically, you know? So, I don't think any of it was necessary. Protests could have been peaceful, but you have anarchists. Police could have responded better, but you have racists. You have some bad police. You have some police that don't know protocol. I'm not saying I'm not a police expert in the case that any police experts listen to this, which I highly doubt. If you are, I would love your insight into the situation. A bit of expert opinion would be very nice and very much appreciated. So, when they burned down the 3rd Precinct police station, right? Congratulations, you avenged a man's death and his unjustified killing. You avenged both of them, you sought justice, and you got it. Did you expect it to stop? No. I certainly didn't. Did you expect it to ruin more lives? Yes, I certainly did. In that same police station, how many rape cases do you think were there? How many evidence? How many evidence? Yo, Miss Fox is rolling in her grave right now. How much evidence do you think is there to prosecute rapists, drug lords, murderers, killers, scam artists? How many people's lives were ruined and justices taken away from them because of one guy's death? And then you hear the argument of, well, it's for a greater cause. And I'm saying, well, what about the individual? What about little 10-year-old Sally over there? What about 50-year-old George over there waiting for his pension but was denied it because his city was burned down? These are all things. And so I didn't think it was justified, A peaceful protest would have served your purposes better. This whole black square thing that I see people did, I thought it was nonsensical. It was stupid, in my opinion. You want to protest by staying silent? That's so moronic in its ways. I don't know if someone can give me insight on how a black square event helped it. I hear the justification that the black squares block out social media to help posts go by, but then I'm saying you're still posting. You're posting a black fucking square, right? You have social media feed. So let me move on quickly to Chaz and Chop before I run out of time. Basically, Chaz, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, was changed to CHOP, Capitol Hill Organized Protest, where essentially protesters took control of 6 city blocks in Seattle and set up their own, what is essentially to Jamaicans similar to a garrison community, right? It didn't have the police. The police was evacuated. They basically quit. They didn't have any government support at the time, and essentially you had civilian guards, pseudo police. You had people who are untrained with guns in medical experience trying to treat people with, it was horrible. I was looking at it and I was like, the complete disarray of that whole thing was just a shitstorm on a monumental scale. People were complaining that they didn't get any government assistance. Then why form your own country? You get what I'm saying? Why form your own autonomous zone, independent of the government, if you're just going to complain to the government that you're not getting government support? I heard Chaz has this new warlord, a warlord named Raz. I'm trying to wonder if that has anything associated with the name because it rhymed. Who is essentially going around in businesses within Chaz and Chop, Chaz/Chop, and extorting uh, businesses for protection money, and you're like, wow, a black guy is extorting businesses for protection. Wow, that that's that's counterintuitive to the cause, you know. it's it's a whole shit show. Chaz Chop is its own like thought experiment. It's a social experiment on a nationwide scale, in my opinion. You have pseudo police that are outly racist. I don't care what anyone says. Racism is racism regardless of who gets it. If you're racist to black people, you're still racist. If you're racist to white people, you're still racist, right? In Chaz Chop, you have pseudo BLM police instigating fights, discriminating against white people. That's racism and that's irony. You're fighting against discrimination with discrimination. That's what? What? It's a whole story. I would like to know what you guys think. You know, do you think the formation of autonomous zone was necessary? I don't think it was, and I think it's just a giant social experiment. What do you think? That's all for now. I kind of went a little bit over time, but hey, anything to hear to my listen or adhere to my sweet nothings. Have a nice day, everybody. Remember, like if you like the conversation, dislike if you didn't. You know, all opinions are accepted. I would like to know your feedback, your comments on these topics or discussions, and have a good one.